Welcome to Mr. Wizard's Workshop, episode 51, coming up on almost a year now. So the focus this week is understanding procrastination. One of the benefits, one of my taglines actually for my coaching service for business owners is beat procrastination and get your shit done. Needless to say, I've given a lot of thought to the whole subject of what causes it. Even before I became a business coach, going back many years as a project manager, and even before that as an individual contributor, I've always had an interest in productivity and getting shit done. The whole subject of procrastination, I mean, there's some interesting research around it, but there's also, I think, a lot of conflicting thoughts, opinions, and advice. So I'm trying to kind of distill it down. The focus for this workshop will just be, what is it? Because I think that first you got to get your mind around it, what it is, what it isn't. And then one or more follow-up workshops starting next week, I'll start talking about a particular solution. The basic definition, or the definition I like the best out of these several that are out there, are the action of unnecessarily, and so I can live with involuntarily, delaying or postponing taking some action, despite knowing that there will be negative consequences for doing so. Logically speaking, procrastination is rational. Some of the key features, it involves unnecessary delay. The delay generally or almost always leads to predictable negative outcomes and consequences in terms of things like the procrastinator's performance or well-being. The delay is often, but not always, unintentional, meaning that it occurs despite the procrastinator's intent to do things on time. It involves an intention action gap, appears as different things. And that's what I think one of the areas where people can get confused about what is or what isn't procrastination. So one of the ways you can procrastination manifests itself is performing a distracting activity that improves your mood when you should, and you should be doing something else. I mean, the obvious YouTube kitty videos. I mean, with the 24/7 access to the internet and online networking tools, I think everybody's pretty familiar with the opportunity to perform those distracting activities. Delaying a task indefinitely. So if you've got something that you keep rolling over from for example, if you use calendar time blocking, which I highly recommend, if you notice you're continuing to roll over the same task, that's procrastination. The third general way you can see it manifested, if you're planning extensively about a task without actually doing it, without getting started. So planning is productive only up to a point. If all you ever do is meditate on and plan and don't go forward, that's pretty much procrastination. And then just kind of the general thing of knowing you should do something right now, but failing to do it. I won't spend a huge amount of time on this, but I wanted to go through and put some specific examples of procrastination, based on my experience, based on my observations as a project manager with managing team members, and based on my experience with some of my coaching clients. So, and even going back to my college days. So, a student who postponed studying for exam until the night before, despite, the good intention of wanting to start earlier and feeling bad about not actually getting started. Someone who has months to submit some important application or piece of paperwork like your tax returns, delays into the day before or the day of the deadline, despite repeatedly promising themselves they'll start earlier. Browsing social media when you should be working, even though you're frustrated with yourself and wish you wouldn't do that. Staying up hours later than you really intended at night while watching videos, playing games. I wasn't doing that. Or reading. So that would be mostly, I'd be reading and really get taken up in usually a novel, and I keep reading even though I know I'm going to pay the price tomorrow. Doing useful things like cleaning up your room or your kitchen or vacuuming when you should be doing more important things like, again, finishing a school assignment if you're a student, or finishing a particular important project that's got a deadline if you're a business person. Promising yourself that you'll get started on some passion project like writing a book or building a business, one day or sometime soon, but never actually making any progress towards even getting started. I'll go ahead and kind of wrap this up. The last one would be, and I've observed this in some of my business clients, choosing between two opportunities until the indecision means that both opportunities are no longer available. So some of the definitions of procrastination I've seen use the term lazy. I think that, I know that procrastination and laziness are actually two different thing. Procrastination involves delaying unnecessarily. Laziness involves being voluntarily unwilling to exert the necessary effort. So procrastination is not laziness. It's possible to procrastinate even if you aren't lazy, or to be lazy but not procrastinate. So it's incorrect to broadly assume that procrastination is just a form of laziness, that procrastinators are just lazy, or that procrastinators don't care about their tendency to procrastinate. That is definitely not true. So for all of my business clients who have challenges with procrastination, they care very much about it. I mean, that's one reason why they became a client of mine. So procrastinators can be very industrious people who are highly motivated to take action and overcome their procrastination. As such, they often intend to work as hard or harder than non-procrastinators, and may even actually work harder in practice. So this cartoon made me laugh, so I pulled it in. I think I see the problem. Let's tackle that tomorrow. Is procrastination a time management problem? Well, when people procrastinate, it generally means they are failing to manage their time as effectively as they could. But most of the time, that's a result, not a cause. I will observe that calendar time blocking, which I highly recommend, I've done a whole series of short tips on time blocking, can help you to become more aware of any habits of procrastination you have, as well as reduce your ability to lie to yourself. And the primary cause of you losing track or procrastinating is due to not having effective time management. Then calendar time blocking can put that particular issue to bed. But in general, I'd say most of the time, procrastination is actually an emotion regulation problem, not a time management problem. And this is a direct quote from one of the researchers who has done a lot of study on the whole subject. And I believe, he has written a book on it. Procrastination can be understood as, the primacy of short-term mood repair over the longer-term pursuit of intended act. So another way to think about it, procrastination is about being more focused on the immediate urgency of managing, usually, let's say 90% of the time, managing negative mood than getting on with the task. So it isn't an inherent character flaw or some mysterious curse on your ability to manage time, but it's actually a way of coping with challenging emotions and negative moods that are induced by thinking about at least certain tasks. And this can be type specific, but for many people, some types of work, some types of tasks, some domains, if they think about it, it evokes boredom, fear, anxiety, insecurity, frustration, resentment, self-doubt, etc. So procrastination is a way to short-term manage the effects of those negative moods. Now, longer term, it's going to induce other more painful moods. But in the short term, it's like, okay, I'll think it's like the Scarlet Hera approach. I'll think about that tomorrow. So I did go through and gather up some interesting statistics on procrastination. 20% U.S. men and women self-identify as chronic procrastinators. I think that's, based on my experience, I'd say that's a pretty realistic number. I don't know how that holds outside the U.S. My guess would be similar in Europe or other parts of the world. Based on some other research, 88% of the workforce, that would be employees, self-report say they tend to procrastinate at least 1 hour a day. 50% of college students self-report that they procrastinate in a consistent and chronic manner, i.e. they label themselves as chronic procrastinators. And 75% consider themselves to be procrastinators, maybe, but not all of them put themselves in the chronic bucket. But some additional research that the EPI did, actually anywhere from 80% to 95% of college students procrastinate particularly when it comes to doing their homework. So if you observe behavior, it goes up to like 80 to 90%, which is actually pretty amazing and sort of appalling. So in a study on adults, 74% of the people who were surveyed indicated they go to bed later than planned at least once a week with no external reason for doing that. And then another survey, 94% of the people indicated that procrastination has a negative effect on their happiness. 18% indicated that this effect is extremely negative. And students were asked, and there's a lot of research around procrastination in students for probably a lot of reasons, but one would be it's a really easy audience for professors to do studies on. But when the students were asked how they felt about procrastinating, over 80% categorized that feeling as negative. Okay, I think this is the last statistic. People spent, on average, almost half of their time when they're online procrastinating, which amounted to, again, this is an average because so it ranges widely, to an average of almost 2 hours a day of internet procrastination. So as I said, I'm going to start providing solution recommendations next week, but I think a not perfect but useful framework to think about and discuss solutions is the concept of types of procrastination. So I'm going to introduce and there's a couple of different approaches to types out there. There's 4 types, 5 types, 6 types, but I think this one, the 6 types, is a pretty reasonable framework, and it lends itself well when we start getting into discussion starting next week on solutions. So there's a perfectionist type, and some of the characteristics of that particular type of procrastination is people who fall in that category are demonstrating that type tend to put forth too much time and energy to make sure that everything that they do is perfect. And related to that, they usually tend to put off starting due to a fear of failure or doubts about doing it the right way or getting it perfect. The dreamer, some of their characteristics is they tend to be passive rather than active, especially related to certain types of categories of tasks. They often pay little attention to facts or details, making it hard to focus on perform difficult tasks. This one is using, not I'd say always true, but often true. They tend to think of themselves as special people for whom fate will intervene, making hard work and efficiency unnecessary. Worrier type, so tend to be indecisive and often fail to commit themselves to the specific decisions that they do make, and they can tend to lack confidence in their own abilities, again, at least in certain domains, that causes them to avoid or delay doing things. And they can often be dependent on others for advice, reassurance, support, and help. And then the defier type, can think of this as passive aggressive, to see life in terms of what others expect or require them to do, not what they themselves would like or want to do. And tend to use procrastination as a way of challenging authority. Now, this was something I saw occasionally as a project manager, where a particular team member was having issues with procrastination, and they were really looking authority. So that required either a change of mindset for them, or in some cases, it required that they get their ass off my project. And those folks also tend to be pessimistic in nature. And number 5, crisis maker type. And for whatever reason, they have a tendency to first completely ignore the task, and suddenly feel intensely caught up in it, and they start dramatizing it, making themselves the center of attention. They typically tend to be easily bored and resist the dullness of doing things rationally and methodically. And then the last type, the overdoer type, they often have trouble saying no or are asking for help, tend to assume so many different responsibilities and roles that they easily get distracted from a specific task and confused about priorities. Now, this is a type that calendar time blocking can really help. And I'll revisit that more next week, or probably next week when I start talking about solutions. They also often find it difficult to relax without feeling guilty or ashamed. Action item for the week is to think about and ponder, is there anything on this short list, signs of procrastination checklist, that rings a bell for you? The first one is excuses. So do you ever find that you're making excuses or not tackling a task that, well, if you're self-employed, that you've assigned to yourself, The other one would be, do you find sometimes that you're performing unimportant tasks? You fill your day or much of your day with lower priority or basically unimportant things that don't, and then you don't leave enough time to do the work that matters most. A third kind of general manifestation would be in the category of decision making, where you fail to decide how to handle a project or task. As a project manager, this was something that I especially was good at. If this was what was causing procrastination for one of my team members, I was able, and as a business coach also, I'm really able to jump in there and help someone think about, work through how to handle a project or a task, and how to make the decisions they need to break a logjam and go forward. And then there'd kind of be a general checklist item, which would be delaying. So if you're noticing that, or do you notice that you're constantly leaving things unfinished that you think you want to get finished?
Hello.
Hello.
So let's start with Eugene. Any of those four things on the little checklist that you observe as your own?
Not so much now, although I do still have those tendencies. But when I was a faculty member, I used to have the hardest time writing, and I would make all kinds of excuses. We actually laugh at each other when, my bathroom is really, really clean now. Because, we would do that type of thing. I would do that all the time, like clean the house rather than write and do that. And a lot of it is fear. Like you're very fearful to let your writing out into the world, because you put all of your heart and soul into it, and it's going to be criticized. And so it's very hard to do that. The other thing also, I found writing to be very lonely. And even though I love writing, I like to be around people. And I found it very difficult to say, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours of my day alone today. And so when I started getting involved with virtual writing groups where you all hang out together and write, that transformed my writing. Mm-hmm. And so now I hardly procrastinate on my writing, but there's still that fear, and I'm trying to overcome that with positive affirmations and that kind of thing. Because this fear is something that every single writer has. I mean, I think even the best of the best. I just watched a video of the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. She still has those same fears. One of the things about being a writer, and you just have to deal with it and move on. Since becoming an entrepreneur, my procrastination has gone down really a lot, because I've been following, planning principles and calendaring principles. And so it took me a while to get into it, but now I do it all the time. And a lot of it is your influence, Steve. So thank you.
You bet. Everybody procrastinates to a certain extent. And one of the things I will observe and I kind of watch for is, am I making excuses for why I didn't get to something that I maybe didn't feel super motivated to work on? And, I'll cut myself a certain amount of slack, but if I find for the same thing, I'm rolling it over and making some excuse, that causes me to take a closer look at that and start trying to put one or more of the solutions I'm going to start talking about next week into play. So which of those, if any, do you observe in yourself, Morris?
Oh my gosh, so much. I think being a self-employed, that's the main battle, I would say.
Yeah.
Because we are responsible to ourselves, we report to ourselves, and I think Gina is spot on when she mentions fear. I don't think it's laziness at all, as you explained, Stephen. I guess it's or procrastinating as like a student or as an employed person. I feel like, at least for me, these are two very different types of procrastination.
It's a complex subject. I think some of the content out there in the recommendations is a little too simple-minded, and I think there are different solutions depending on the nature of why exactly you're procrastinating for a particular task. And I think it can actually be domain specific. So for certain type of tasks, there might be one reason why that's a challenge for you. And for other areas, other domains, it might be a different reason. And then I think it's also, the solution is not one size fits all, because different people have different reasons why they're procrastinating. Next week, like I say, I'm going to start, and it's probably 2 or 3 workshops, really, or I could cover that much as far as different approaches to overcoming procrastination. But
yeah, for me, it's usually not physical tasks. Like physical tasks are much easier to do, I find.
Yep.
Not sure if it's the same for others. It's usually things that I don't want to do. And so the question is, why do I have to do things I don't want to do? It always comes back to understanding, does this help me achieve my goals? And if I procrastinate something, it's usually because somehow deep down, I'm not truly convinced this will help me achieve my goals. And I think that's the hard work that we have to do is instead of, if we procrastinate by distracting ourselves, that's really bad.
yeah.
But if, you will never get out of it. But the hard work is, okay, I'm procrastinating this task. Why? Like, why am I not motivated to do this? Shouldn't this help me make more money? Shouldn't this help me, grow my business? So then why am I procrastinating? Because those are two things that make me very happy, money and growing my business. So it just means that whether it's consciously or subconsciously, I don't believe that maybe it works for others, but I don't believe it works for me.
Right.
And those are really difficult conversations, especially at the end of a long day where you're tired and you don't want to do things.
Right. Well, in that particular case, I think that can fall into the time management category, because if it's something that's on your list, if you've blocked it out, hey, this is an activity I need to get to today, and you've intentionally put it on your calendar, you prioritized it as something that you think you need to do, but then if you're of two minds about it, you've got some more work to do as far as your prioritization, because it's either something you truly need to do or it's not something you truly need to do. Which is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else? Any other thoughts on this whole big subject of procrastination that you want to discuss as a group today?
I think that you did a really good job, laying it all out. I've done a lot of reading on it too, because it was a problem that I had. So,
well, thanks everybody for joining, and I will have a great rest of your day. And I'll
thank you.
See you next week.
Thank you. Awesome topic, Stephen. Looking forward to the next ones. Bye, Gina.
Thanks for watching this video recording from my live weekly workshop. Every Sunday, I feature instantly actionable steps you can take to overcome procrastination, increase your productivity, and get your shit done. Followed up by Q&A and discussion with the live participants. I really hope you found this video useful and you feel like watching it was time well spent. Please post any questions or comments you have. I always answer posts. I'd appreciate it very much if you would like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you know anyone that would enjoy and benefit from this particular episode, please send them the link. Stay productive, my friends.